Thousands years have passed since the battle with the Shadow Dragons and the Earth's guardians, the Z Warriors. Ever since that fateful day, the Earth's mightiest protector Son Goku fought his last fight entirely, joined the newly rejuvenated Shenron, and left his family behind to rest his tired soul of all the fighting forever, joining Shenron, taking the Dragon Balls with them so the humans can learn to rely on themselves instead of the magical items. Ever since then, Goku's along with Vegeta's family and friends had continued to watch the Earth as its protectors in the stead of their old friend Goku, and long later died but given birth to children to take up the mantle, watching the Earth as its protectors. Even Vegeta, the Saiyan prince as well as old rival and old friend of Goku's, took up the title to keep his friend's legacy alive until his death as well. Since then, the blood of the Saiyan race has all but passed on through the generations, growing weaker and weaker but still compressed and growing stronger through each generation. That's when disaster struck as a terrible apocalypse struck the Earth, almost bringing extinction to the human race. They survived though, but at the cost of the protectors of the Earth's lives when they sacrificed themselves to quell down the apocalypse to a minimum, but it also cost the Earth's technology to completely go haywire before forever being lost to the world. As time passed, the Earth's barren wasteland soon began to thrive and humans began to appear once more. Time passed and civilizations rose and fell upon the passage of time and war. Since then, from what humans called upon was heaven's blessing was that a large creature of godly proportions with 10 tails came from heaven. This entity was called many things as a guardian, protector, savior of Earth, but one name stuck with it for thousands of years. The Dubai, the celestial being, was a creation made from chemi, since the kinds of old and new had all but died out and the new gods have taken up the mantle of their old predecessors to watch over the universe, but the Earth in particular that watched more sternly, since it was the same world. The very warriors that could rival themselves in power grew up and got stronger throughout their lives. This being, the Dubai, was created for the sole purpose of protecting humanity and keeping peace of Earth, but soon the dark side of humanity turned its ugly head. A group of greedy and power-hungry humans appeared mysteriously and tried to control the entity with an art called Fu and Jutsu, only to have it backfire on them and enrage the Dubai. That day, humans angered the once protector of the Earth and soon found out they weren't so powerful without the Jubilee's help anymore. A man who had been named as the Richard Osanman appeared before the enraged entity and tried to calm the beast in negotiating why it's so angry, but the creature was too far gone to speak to the human. Its anger had slowly been rising over the years of seeing humans and their greed for power, and when those foolish mortals, as it called them, tried to control him, that drew the line for it and killed all of the humans that got in its way to cleanse the Earth. Seeing the beast, to enraged Do answer, the Richido did a sealing only he knew and was said to have been blessed by the Joe by his very own creators to calm the beast. How he did this: he used the power of his eyes and body and sealed the entity within his own body, making him the first of many Ginger Ikki to come before him. Years later, the Rikido was on his deathbed and was already at death's door, so with the last of the incredible man's spirit he gave his two sons a gift for the future. The youngest he gave his physical power and body, and to the eldest he was given his eyes and spiritual power. After this, the Rikido had named the youngest as his successor, which in turn made the eldest, who believed in power could keep the peace of the world, turn his back on the unjust and tried to attack him, which in turn led to the two sons' rivalry throughout the Eds, with their families sing on the rivalry and legacy of the Rikido. As the man laid on his deathbed with the last of his strength, he split the Jubi's power into 9 parts and sealed each one into a spiritually aware animal of his choosing. One was a sand-colored tanuki, which in turn became the Ikibi no Shukaku, a purple cat, which soon became the Nibi Nekomata. Thirdly was a fusion of a horse and a dolphin of the ocean, which the two joined as one, becoming the Gobi, the 5-tailed whale horse choosing of a beached sea turtle, which became the Sanbi no Yatshuri. Next was a monkey of legend, which in turn became the Yanbi. Sixth was the animal of healing, as the locals put it, a slug then birthed medically used slugs, became the Roku by 6-tailed castropod. Seventh was another fusion of a rhino and a forest beetle, which soon became the Shichibi 7-tailed rhino beetle. Eighth was a fusion of a squid and a ox, which turned into the Hikubi odd-tailed ox cephalopod. Finally, the last one was his secret daughter. She chose that day to take the last and most strongest of all of the Jobai's power, and after much heated debate fused her with the orange fox, turning her into the now mythical legend Kyobai no Kitsune. After the separation of the godlike entity and seeing his only child, now Abijuvu as he named them, finally died, not knowing of the future he brought upon the world centuries later. Konoha cured today just wasn't me, not Onamikaze's day. First off, the civilian council was still causing a scene of having more trade relations with other villages to increase their own shops and stores to fill their own pockets, while the Shinobi Council was advising him to make advancements on opposing villages' borders, but he always saw the reluctance of Kaharu and Hamura, so they weren't all there with Dan's Osha moral when it came to military relations. Lastly, the evils of being the Hokage of a shinobi village. The evil no Hokage or any kage in history has ever been able to face and defeat the accursed paperwork, but he was joyfully happy. Also, his wife Kushina was gonna give birth to twins, and from what his friend Tsunade said, one one was a boy and the other a girl. He couldn't wait to be a father, but something happened. A masked man had come and attacked during Kushina's labor and threatened to kill his 2 children if he didn't step away from the woman. Doing so started the whole situation he was in. Now in front of him was a chain 9-tailed fox growling at him in a bloody rage in its eyes, with his wife Kushina on the ground beside him holding his 2 children in her arms as they both stared into the crazed eyes of the Kyuubi that was once a loving being to Kushina. Damu Matara, Damu to hell, Kushina yelled as she was told of what the man did and only knew of one person to control the canoe by Quelkubai, but nothing had worked, that is until he remembered a particular ceiling. Such a way Minato looked very desperate and broken. He had tried everything to looking at his children. He looked at his daughter. The sleeping babe had the same hair as Kushina, only with a few streaks of blonde but blue eyes like his own. Looking at his son he felt a rush of fatherly pride. The boy had spiky yellow hair like his own, but strangely it seemed to glow at times. His eyes, he remembered them even now, they were his mother's eyes, but at the same time flashed a sea green before disappearing. He remembered the birth of the 2 and had gave his son the name Naruto, which he meant as Maelstrom, and Kushina named their daughter Mito, whom he named after Tsunade's grandmother. His son was born before her a minute early, so Naruto was the older brother of Mito. He smiled seeing his family and children, but his face turned stony remembering what he had to do with that. He got the sobbing Kushina's attention and told him of his plan. Only they nor Cuba never knew of another entity watching the scene with interest. Realm of Shenron. Watching the scene was a giant green dragon with 2 glowing red eyes. He watched on with what could be seen as a smile. Ever since the birth of the planet he had watched on as the earth continued without the Dragon Balls, and how it grew and fell when the apocalypse fell upon the world. Everything and seen how the new gods, as they call themselves these days, created Jubai, a being he would say had the power to rival a Super Saiyan at best. He snorted in amusement. That thing did its job protecting the earth for a while until those humans tried to control it, something the dragon found amusing, since seeing the Jubi crush them like ants and seeing them scream and run in fear was to him an amusing show. That's when he narrowed his eyes seeing the scene before him and had to think of an idea of what to do, because it was quite obvious the male was going to use something to deal with the cowboy. But when he looked at the boy, the man was staring at his eyes widened at epic proportions before he started to chuckle before outright laughing. Ha ha ha, who would have thought their blood was still alive on earth and in such a condensed matter? If a slight tap into the boy's blood I can awaken it, he mused, thinking of what he could do. That's when he thought of something. Even though he would bring out his presence once more into the world and give out his location to the other celestial beings, it wouldn't matter, for if his plan worked there would be a new and stronger guardian for the earth than all the previous combined. Searching within himself he felt that the presence was still there, but he could feel the science presence and smirked. I think it's time for a rebirth of a Saiyan and a guardian, he said before his form started to glow gold before disappearing in a flash of light. Back with me Nato. I see you're gonna seal the Kubai into Naruto, but what about Konoha? They will see him as a monster. You should know this, Kushina said, trying to change Minato's idea, but it was unfortunately impossible. The man wouldn't budge. I know this, but I can at least try. Besides, he will have you and Mito in his life, he said, trying to reassure her, but even in the deepest reaches of his heart he knew the life Naruto would lead if he did this, and it was heart-wrenching to know he would be the one to place the burden on his newly born son. The crying redhead just hung her head low, unable to say anything else. Her newly born son was gonna become the next Gintoriki of the Kubai. She knew the horrors of being one, and it pained her to know she couldn't stop it in her horrible state. As he was about to reach for Naruto, Minato felt a presence overbearing, and everything he ever felt before, even Cowbuy's bloodlust and killing intent, was dwarfed by this feeling of power. Looking around he saw everything stopped, like time slowed down to a crawl. Looking back at Kushina he saw that she was frozen as well, but somehow his son was still sleeping like normal. That's when he heard lightning, and snapping his head up he saw something that would make the toughest of Hokages scream like little girls. Above him in the black sky was a green giant dragon with red glowing eyes, and its jaws were wide in the grin revealing its giant razor-sharp teeth. In short, the thing made the Kyuubi look like a newborn kit. Minato broke out in a cold sweat when the dragon's head started to come closer to him and his family before finally stopping a foot away from him. Shenron found it quite amusing to see the blonde man nervous, but couldn't blame him. Seeing something of his stature was sure to scare even the toughest of any being. The gods themselves knew not to anger him unless they wanted to face the wrath of a dragon. Looking at Minato he turned his gaze toward Kushina before resting his eyes upon the blonde babe Naruto. He heard his name was closing in. He looked down at the sleeping babe, and before Minato's shocked eyes a golden orb of light softly floated out of the dragon and into Naruto, and before he could do anything there was a flash of light erupting from Naruto's form until it became clear again. Opening his eyes, Minato saw where his blonde son slept was a spiky black-haired baby with larger than normal arms for a babe. He saw the black-haired boy's eyes open slightly to see him and the dragon. Right then Minato saw the change in his son. He still had his father's eyes but were deep blue in color. Looking back at the dragon, what did you just do to my son? Getting a chuckle from the dragon making the area shake and him stumble a bit. Mortal, I have just did a little something something that will save this world and bring about a new guardian for the entire earth. Your son Naruto, as you call him, is in reality the reincarnation of a being far stronger than any human or Baiju. Hell, this being was able to tear the world asunder if he wanted to, but he protected like and cherished it throughout his whole time, and now your son will be reborn as this man, for this world needs a sign once more to protect it from the future dangers that are to come, Shenron explained, getting a shocked look from Minato, looking back at his son who was curiously looking around as a brown monkey tail twitched a few times from behind him, making Minato gape. Looking back, he saw the dragon chuckling. I know what's with the tail, right? Well, let's just say this being wasn't exactly human but at the heart of one. Now about your little Kubai problem, I can't have you sealing it into this child, so I suggest you seal it into your daughter. Don't worry, nothing will happen to her, that I can promise you, he explained. Minato just stood there for a few minutes to reassess the situation before he lowered his head in defeat. No matter how much he thought nothing else would work, and he most definitely wouldn't disagree with a dragon this size, so with a heavy heart he began to do the seals for the Shiki Fujin. As Shenron started to glow a golden light finishing the hand seals, he asked one last thing. I'm sorry Naruto, Mito, Kushina, I love you all, before slamming his hands on the ground and shouted Shikifu with the sealing announced. Shenron's body rose before shooting into Naruto once more. Good thing to, because then a figure floated from behind Minato with a twisted grin on its face. It was the Shinigami entity of death, an apprentice of King Yama. Looking around, the Shinigami's face turned into a frown before it settled upon the chain down Baiju and broken family before it, though when its eyes landed upon Naruto's tailed form, its eyes widened a bit before its grin got even wider, though it looked down to see the one who summoned him talking with the woman. Minato, what happened to our son? He's changed, she yelled frantically, worrying over what happened to Naruto. Minato just chuckled a bit. Even in such a situation, Kushina was always oblivious to what was going on. Let's just say ... Naruto is gonna be someone very important to the world, and changes appeared since, well, Naruto is basically the reincarnation of someone very important, and let's leave it at that. Kushina wasn't amused if the glare at him was anything. Minato, I swear if what you're saying is some kind of joke, I will do Shinigami's job for it and kill you, she said darkly, making him sweat a bit before they both turned to see something very adorable in both their eyes. Mito was giggling while petting the monkey tail that twitched it slowly, somehow reacting to her touches her baby face and caressed her face, making her burst into giggles once more and smiled at the sight until they were interrupted by the situation at hand. Looking up, they saw the Shinigami with an annoyed look on its face. If you are done, mortal, I'd like to get this done with. I have other things to do, you know, torture other souls and whatnot. The entity of death gaining sweat drops from both parents. With that, Minato gently took hold of Mito while Kushina held Naruto. Seeing what Minato was about to do, Kushina just felt so bad about not knowing how to do this another way, and now one of her children had to pay the price for it. She felt awful and disgusted with herself at that moment, but looking down she saw Naruto's blue eyes staring at her own purple ones with curiosity before he reached up, placed both hands on her cheeks and smiled. This seemed to lighten her mood a bit. Even if he changed a lot, he was still Naruto, so grasping his little hand, she held them gently as she kissed his forehead. Holding him tightly, she made a silent vow to always protect her children from any and all enemies that would try to hurt them. Hearing the sound of a body hitting the floor, she slowly looked up to see the cool bygone, the Shinigami's spirit gone as well, with Minato's dead body on the ground with his arms wrapped around Mito's crying form. Quickly getting up, she got to the little red head and slowly placed the crying baby in her other arm before looking down at Minato's body and smiled sadly. Don't worry Minato, they will be safe, I promise, she assured her late husband, not knowing of the painful future that's going to come for them. 3 days later. It's been 3 days since the attack of Chubai in the village of Konohigakure. The civilian and shinobi alike were all mourning for their loss against the Kubai, but most were mourning for their late Hokage, the Yondaime, who sacrificed his life to defeat the demon. As they were all told, only the higher-ups in the shinobi rank truly knew what happened, and yet even they wouldn't mention anything. Meanwhile, at the Sarutobi clan house, Heirs Rusen Sarutobi, the Kami no Shinobi student of the Shoin Nadaime sensei of the legendary Sannin and predecessor of the Yondaime, was rubbing his temples in frustration. The council was now on his back, trying to have the current Gintoriki Mito killed, since he did announce to the council of what happened. Now he was getting pissed real fast of how the whole council, civilians and elders, were acting. That's when he remembered Kushina and the 2 children and smiled softly at the thought of them. The 2 little babes were almost inseparable, and they slept in the same crib, because if they were separated, Naruto and Mito both would cry until they were put back together with each other. Hell, Naruto's wail was strong enough to crack a damn window, and it seemed to always get louder with each passing hour, and even caused several of the Anbu who were watching him eardrums to bleed literally and almost disrupt the sound barrier seal, though that didn't stop his iron will of protecting the 3 from the council, and told Kushina they were welcome to live within his clan home, since the Nomics compound was all but in ruins during the attack. Remembering the 2 smiling faces of the 2 babes as well as the happy form of Kushina with them made the fire in his eyes burn brightly, a fire he had possessed when he was in his prime and then grew into a cold fury. He rose up and snapped his fingers, causing two masked Tambu awaiting their leader's orders. Rat Bor, gather up the council, it is time they learn just who it was that ruled Konoha, he said in an authoritative and murderous tone that made the Tuambu inwardly flinch but smile in satisfaction, since the true Sandaime, the man who survived 3 of the great wars, mastered over 1,000 jutsu, and the very man who in his prime was the strongest of the other elemental cages in their prime, was coming back with a quick hi. The two disappeared in a shush-in. With that, Sarutobi turned around and headed to the Namikaze's room to check upon them. While walking, he mildly remembered something about Naruto that made him curious, which was the monkey tail attached to his backside, and his hair was as black as night and still spiked, but not like his father's, more like spiked in all directions. He found it amusing of how Naruto looked similar to that of a newborn monkey he'd seen when he visited Monkey Kingdom. For the first time, getting to the door, he knocked a few times, getting an enter when walking, and he saw something very adorable in his eyes. In front of him was Kushina holding Mito as she played with a taller but still small baby Naruto. The little redhead was playing with Naruto's tail like it was her favorite pastime in the whole world. Naruto himself looked constipated about something, but soon started to cry a bit when Natsumi gripped his tail tighter. Seeing the imminent danger of one of Naruto's dangerous shouts of hell, he flashed to the little babes and grabbed Mito's hand softly and pulled it away from the now ticking time bomb that was Naruto. Kushina, I'm about to head for another council meeting, and after this we will explain on how you want to train these two, for I know how much you want them to get stronger to protect themselves, so after this we will discuss on how you want to train them. All right, he said, getting a happy nod from the woman. Thank you, Ogi-san, and these two would probably say the same thing, but I think they're a little busy, she said with a giggle. At the end, he smiled at the family of 3 and headed out to go show the council who truly controls Konoha and got them under control. He did after killing several civilian and beating Danzo literally into the ground and having him sent to the hospital. He reminded those of the council who truly ruled Konoha with an iron fist. After this, with the help of his 2 other teammates Kaharu and Hamura, he explained to the clan heads of what truly happened, and to say some were shocked was like saying Jiraiya had a healthy relationship with women. Biggest understatement of the year, as Kushina's best friends Zoom and Makoto generally asked an audience with her and the 2 children, which he accepted, but no others, since even for a Hokage didn't trust those of the Konoha clans that much. 7 years later, after that day, Hiruzen with the help of Kushina helped train the 2 little children to be shinobi so they could defend themselves, and the 2 children took to training like a fish in water, especially Naruto. For some reason he trained much more than any child his age should. He always trained day in and day out, not stopping till he drops, and no one was able to understand. Naruto simply said that it was something calling him to never stop training, always go forth and never stop. What he found very interesting in the shinobi arts was nanatsu and fu and jutsu, but the one he took to most was surprisingly taijutsu. He had found the art exhilarating to him, since you could fight close up with your opponent and not from long or mid-range, since he didn't find any of the current arts suitable for him. So when Sarutobi realized this, he decided to teach Naruto a style he learned from the Monkey King Inma called the Sarukan Monkey Fist, which to his surprise Naruto was able to easily learn the basics. His grandfather figure, who is known to him as Oji Seinerjiji as he and his sister Mito likes to call him, had one time introduced them both to any kind of weapon they would use, and to Mito she chose to wield a katana like her mother as did Naruto, but for some reason he felt like there was another weapon that would suit him aside from a sword. That's when he at one time grasped the bow staff, and at that moment just knew he had to learn how to use one aside from a blade. It was a good thing Hiruzen was a master Beijutsu user, and at that day started to teach Naruto the ways of the Beijutsu, while Kushina taught her daughter and him the ways of using a katana. Speaking of Mito, for a 7-year-old the girl, she was quite the hothead, just like her mother, since anything that pissed her off would make any male in the vicinity flinch, holding their groins at a phantom pain, as they still remembered that one man that tried to grub Kushina, and that same man ended up getting a good beating from both Mito and Naruto, but Mito finished it off by throwing a kunai right in the center of the man's groin, destroying any way of him having children. But if there was one thing she loved most was her big brother. Despite him only being a minute older than her, he stood by her when she needed it. She was very protective of him, but those that tried to hurt her would end up having a beating of their life from the nickname Sarugaki of Konoha because of his monkey tail swinging around his backside. She had grew up by his side for 7 years and always knew something about him was different than her or her mother or their father for that matter, but she never dwelled on it much and just lived happily by her most loved person besides her cause. And she too had trained, even though it was nowhere near as much as Naruto, but a good amount for one her age, and was already at the beginning stages of chakra control exercises and in the steps of Nin-Ken Genfu and Jutsu. Kushina tried teaching Naruto chakra control exercises, but for some reason he just had too much energy to try and control it. Basically, she was on an early start of becoming a shinobi while her Nissan was training to become something different. They both physically grew up like the 7-year-olds they were, but somehow Naruto's body was starting to turn more lean and muscular with each passing month of what he called warm-up exercises, which included him pulling a full-grown Hinokuni tree around Konoha in 7 laps before climbing the Hokage monument with with one arm tied together with two giant boulders weighing him down. They checked out why he was able to do such things, but all they found was that Naruto had the strength and durability no human should have, while his stamina was off the charts, going past even his mother's or Mato's own level. His muscles weren't too buff for a child his age, but they were quite able, and at times when Mito doesn't think people were watching, she would watch how Naruto trained. She didn't know why, but just watching him made her feel weird. She never told anyone though and kept it to herself. Over the last 7 years when they grew up, they had met their Kachan's best friends, who were the Inusuke matriarch Zuma News Yuka and the Uchiha clan's head's wife Makoto Uchiha. When the two women met the two little tykes, they all but glomped the poor children, or in Naruto's case tortured, when they found out about his tale. Ever since then he's been named their pet with the nickname Monkey-kun. Kushina and Natsume never let him live it down either, always bugging him about it. It was the same when they met their dad's two students Kakashi Hatake and Rinkazama. Mito and Naruto would call Kakashi either Oroinu or Oroni, since Kushina told them about how Kakashi read the books their father's old student wrote in public, much to the man's embarrassment. Rin on the other adored them both, especially Naruto and his tale. It turned worse when she introduced the black-haired boy to Ku Renyuhi Anko Madirashi Yugao Azuki and the young Chunin Hana News Yuka, due to the fact that they would always glomps the poor kid due to the fact that they were attracted to his tale. Right now we find a spiky black-haired boy who wore black shinobi sandals with black cargo pants. He had around his waist a white sash with a black shirt over his chest, and strapped to his back was a black pole with gold tips at the end of it that from normal standards was just that, a normal black pole, but to those that knew what it truly did they would know it was a bow staff with a seal, making it able to expand and lengthen, and also wielded an enjato that Kakashi gave him. The boy's face still had a little baby fat but was starting to lose it due to the training he was going through. The boy's eyes were now deep blue and had black eyebrows as well, and sticking out from his upper lip were two small canines. He had a small tired smile on his face since he was out panting in the forest of Kanehigakure. Around him were craters and broken trees from his latest training exercise. Wiping the sweat from his brow, he inhaled before exhaling. Standing up, he heard something from within the woods thanks to his sensitive hearing, and looked behind him and saw in the woods a mob of what looked like armed civilians with masked men mixed in with the kanji for knee on their blank masks. Narrowing his eyes, he took a step back and spoke, "What's up guys, need something already?" Knowing the answer, "Shut up freak, today you die and no one is here to help you or save you this time, so get ready to die," said a civilian, while the others cheered, and the root ninja stood by watching for any shinobi to come by the area. "I see, and I suppose you think I won't fight back then," he said, getting a arrogant smirk from dumbass number one. "Of course the freak has to learn from its betters who's in charge around here, so stay down and let your masters whip you like the Obedek dog." You are getting a roar of approval from the crowd. Naruto's eyes turned dark, and dangerous eyes that shouldn't be on a 7-year-old boy like him, and spoke while getting into stance like hell. "I will now, come get me you pathetic bastards," he said, getting angry yells from the civilians, and with that they charged in intent to kill the monkey demon. Too bad they never stood a chance against a trained child in the arts of a shinobi. Quickly pulling out his bow staff, he started dancing around the civilians, knocking them out with a hit by the back of their heads or punches to the stomach. With his incredible strength, his punches at full blast could punch a hole through the toughest of metal, even steel. So to a civilian in him, lowering the punches to a minimum, they felt like they got tackled by a bull. Few minutes later Naruto found himself surrounded by groaning or unconscious civilians, but then a second later he found the Root and Boo surrounding him on all sides. Letting out an irritated sigh, he scratched his head in frustration. There was just no way he could fight these guys. He knew of the Anbu, but these guys were, from what Gigi said, mindless drones that wouldn't stop till their objectives are accomplished, and him still agent in leveled shinobi, he wasn't nowhere near the level to fight them. Feeling a little desperate, he jumped off into the woods with the Root following. A few minutes later Mito came running into the area with a happy expression on her face to see her Nessun, only to see groaning and beat up civilians. She was getting worried until she found something that made her heart stop. Naruto's bow staff and ninjutsu were lying on the ground near his belongings. The only thing that was missing, the picture they took together with Kasan. She started to tear up, fearing the worst, and grabbed his staff and pack. "I gotta find Kasan and Gigi. Nessun may be in danger," she said, jumping off into the woods. "Hurry kid, I sense something wrong here." "Hurry," Cowbell told her container. Over the last few years the two had finally met after one stressful training day and immediately bonded, seeing as the big bad Kubai wasn't as evil as people spoke of. Only Kushina and Naruto knew of Kubai speaking with Mito and didn't really care all that much since Mito was still family to them. Hell, Naruto was excited and asked if Kubai could see them, or other random questions which made the three females giggle at how cute he was when he was like that. Nodding her head in agreement, the little girl sped off trying to find her Kazan as fast as she could. Too bad she wouldn't get them in time with Naruto. The black-haired boy had a few cuts all over his body and had a few kunai and shuriken lodged in his small frame. Following him were 4 Root and Boo that were on his tail. He thought about where he was going but didn't care as long as he could get away from these these guys before they could kill him. Looking ahead he saw the forests ending, so with a mighty jump he shot off ahead of the Anbu and out of the forest, only to come upon a cliff separating him from going any further. Looking around he remembered the place being called the Valley of the End, something he read in a textbook once. Ironic he would come here in his situation. Hearing a thunderous sound he looked up to see storm clouds rolling in. Hearing multiple thuds he looked over his shoulder to see the 4 root Anbu behind him with their ninjato drawn. You have nowhere to go now, demon, just surrender and Danzo-sama can finally have his weapon, said drone number 1 in an emotionless tone. Naruto quirked an eyebrow. Danzo, he shook his head and looked at the situation he was in, looking at the route before slowly looking down of the cliff he saw in a raging river from the brewing up storm. Nervously sweating he had 2 choices to go with. Even for a 7-year-old he could tell when he's near a life or death situation, and now he needed to find a way to escape. Looking over the cliff once more in the slowly advancing route, Naruto closed his eyes, slowly channeling his breathing to calm himself. Putting his hand into his pocket he pulled out a picture he cherished more than anyone would know. It was a picture of the 2 most important people in his life, Kushina and Mito, with him holding Natsumi on his shoulders and Kushina kneeling beside them with a smile on her face with her cheek on his own. He saw Mito's victory sign of what she said that day on top of the world with a peace sign. Smiling sadly he remembered his problem and placed the picture back into his pocket. Sorry Kachan, Mito-chan, looks like I won't be able to see you 2 again. With tears falling from his eyes he steeled his 7-year-old resolve and turns toward the cliff. Ignoring the shout of the Anbu for him to stop he ran as fast as he could, and with a strike of lightning he jumped off the cliff and fell into the raging river below. The root all rushed at the cliff only to curse, seeing their objective commit suicide. The 4 shushin back to Konoha to relay their failure on the capture of Naruto to their master, who won't be pleased with Naruto. The monkey-tailed boy was trying to swim up from the river to get air, but he just kept getting pulled back down by the currents, and without seeing it his head hit a rock, making his eyes go blurry and him succumbing to unconsciousness. Sarutobi clan house as Hirusen was finishing up on his last batch of paperwork on political issues with Kumo, and Kushina was planning for her children's next training plan. They heard a loud bang and rushed off to see what the commotion was. Imagine their surprise to see a panting Mito with Naruto's pack and bow staff. Seeing the staff hurts Yuen and Kushina got worried, and even worse when they saw the red-headed child crying. Rushing to her child, Kushina tried to calm her down only to freeze from a few jumbled words Natsumi kept mumbling as she cried into her cousin's chest. She heard a few things ranging from the stupid Baka villagers and hurting Nison, but the most fearful one was I can't find him, I can't find Nauru. Nison getting a gasp from both Hiruzen and Kushina. A look of fury formed into his eyes and the old man suddenly leapt out the window and yelled and boo, I want 5 search teams to look for Naruto. Azumaki makes look all over Hinokuni borders. I want him found. Hurry, he said, getting nods from them all. Since Jarison saw Naruto as a grandson as Mito was seen as a granddaughter, so to hear one of his surrogate family members was missing had him angry and infuriated with those that tried to attack him. One more he swore when he got a hold of the idiot villagers that attacked his grandson in all but blood he would make them wish that the god of death had devoured their souls. Kushina though was trembling as his shaky hands were over her face while her eyes were wide in horror. Her only son, the one that at times reminded her of Minato so much and was what brought joy to her, and Mito was missing. First Minato, now Naruto. She grabbed Mito and pulled her into a hug, trying to hold back her tears. She felt Mito stiffen before wailing into her shoulder. She felt horrible now. All she had focused on was their training, and now not watching out for her children. One of them disappeared off Kami knows where. She finally let the tears fall and joined Mito as they cried for their lost family. It made it all the worse for Mito since being almost a newborn at the same time as Naruto she had a sort of link to him. Whether sans arms, she felt a disturbance within her when her heart ached for her Nison. That's when she finally got to the worst conclusion her 7-year-old mind could comprehend was spiritual or physical. She knew of when he was in trouble, and right then as she cried in her Kaya felt it in and Nison is gone, has gone, she yelled, shocking the sobbing Kushina even more before she finally broke down with Ramusum. They stayed there in each other's arms crying for their supposed dead Sochi Nissan. Naruto's mindscape groaning. Naruto was rubbing his head in phantom pain while trying to open his eyes. When he did so all he saw is a blue sky in the glowing sun. Leaning up a bit he looked around himself to see grassy fields and mountains as far as the eye and of the shinobi eye could see. He looked around and saw a 3-story house from what looked like it and another small cabin beside it. Somehow he felt like he knew this place but didn't know from where. Hey there, the cheerful voice made the no Mikeys jump back in surprise and turned around quickly only to see something quite shocking. Before him was 2 figures. The first one got his attention immediately. It was a giant dragon on epic proportions. Its body was in the sky itself, appearing in and out of the sky. The whole length of the body was full of green scales and spikes running down its back. Looking at its face he saw 2 giant glowing red eyes staring into his own with what seemed curiosity. After staring at the dragon before him in shock he turned his gaze at the second person standing beside the dragon, and strangely the person was a man. His hair was a bit spikier in other directions while his skin was a dark tan, showing the man was outside quite a lot. He also noticed the muscles on him and realized that he trained extremely. That's when, shockingly enough, he saw the monkey tail twitching behind the kid. Seeing the guy wearing a blue GIT shirt and white belt with sand yellow martial arts pants and Japanese type martial arts shoes, Naruto was seeing the striking similarities he had with this guy minus the hairstyle, and for some reason felt an odd yet similar connection with this man, like he has known him his entire life. Shenron, sensing Naruto's confusion, spoke up. "Boy, we have something to talk about." He got a strained nod from the 7-year-old Naruto and an amused chuckle from the tanned man. With that, Shenron introduced himself as the Dragon of the Dragon Balls and Watcher of the Universe, telling Naruto the true story of how old the Earth truly was, explaining of the humans that lived years and years before the Shinobi era started. He also told him of what the Dragon Balls were, what they were created for, and their true purpose. Despite being only 7 years old, he completely agreed with the celestial being. Humans were sinful beings, but had to say they had the bright side as well, to enjoy their lives to the fullest. It's true, humans are beings capable of both evil and good, but without the other there would be no balance, just like yin and yang. So I say taking the Dragon Balls away from them was the first step to the true evolutionary chain for them, he said, getting a small smile from the man beside the dragon and a grin from Shenron. "You're very intelligent for someone your age, and yes, I agree with you. That is why there needs to be a protector to keep this balance from going out of control. Now there is something else I have called you here for. You're probably wondering where we are, and it's simple. This is your mindscape, your inner world, and this person beside me is basically your." Though the dragon never got to finish when the dark-skinned man jumped from where he was and flashed in front of Naruto, shocking him with his speed, and held out his hand. "Hiya, my name's Son Goku, and it's finally nice to meet you, Naruto Uzumaki." He finished with a big grin and hand held out, blinking a few times. Naruto smirks before grasping the older man's hand with his own. "Nice to meet you, Goku." So Shenron-sama cared to explain what's going on, he said, only to get a bonk on the head from Goku, making Naruto blink, rubbing his head before looking at the grin and saying, "Nah, I'll start explaining this time, because if he did it would take hours or even days, since the old dragon would just explain every little detail," Goku remarked, earning a growl from said dragon. "Now Naruto, I'll cut to the chase. You know my name, but I may look like I'm in my prime to you, but in reality I'm older than the new gods as they call themselves," he said, and then scratching the back of his sheepishly, while Naruto just stood there gaping to think that before him was a man who could be the same age as Kakashi but was in reality an older being than Kami and the other gods. He tried his best to not faint and just dumbly nodded, seeing he still had his attention. Goku continued, "Now you are mostly wondering why we look so alike. Well, to put it bluntly, you're my reincarnation. Ever since Mr. Big and Green here saw the Saiyan blood that had condensed over the years finally erupt in you, transforming you into a full Saiyan like myself," he said, getting a confused look from Naruto. Seeing this, Goku sighed and placed his hand on Naruto's forehead. "I don't feel like explaining to you about science, so I'll transplant it into your mind, the knowledge of what they were before Naruto could retort. A glowing aura came from Goku and flowed into Naruto, making his own form glow the same. That's when a sudden rush of information rammed into his mind, and everything about the Saiyan was practically programmed in his mind. Everything, even about the truffles and the war between them and the science, the legend of the Super Saiyan, and finally how the race was all but killed by an alien called Frieza. He grit his teeth in anger as he saw people like him murdered, but smiled softly since they died fighting. At least that's when he closed his eyes and thought, now I know where I got my love of fighting and competition from. I see you understand what the signs were. They were once a powerful race, the strongest in the universe, but they were all killed, including my own blood father Bardock, by that madman Frieza. Good thing Trunks finished him off, which made Naruto calm down a bit. Looking up at the boy in front of him, he reminisced of what he heard and had to smile. "I always knew I was different, I just didn't know how much, but now that I know the truth, it's finally good to meet a fellow Saiyan," which in turn got grin from Goku. "Yeah, but we have things to discuss. You see, Naruto, since we are to be reunited, we have to become one, but in order to do this you must reach the requirements both mentally and physically, and since you're currently at such a young age, we still have a few years for that to happen," he explained, which confused Naruto. "Then what do we do then? I don't think I should just wait around doing nothing," Naruto stated, and gotten out from Goku. "That's right, and since you're out of Konoha, we can take this opportunity to fix this little problem, and that is with an old teaching method one of my mentors taught me," Goku said with a fond smile, raising an eyebrow. Naruto got curious. "Oh, and what would that be?" That made Goku turn happy all of a sudden. "It will be you traveling all across the elemental countries, honing your skills as I did in Shenron, and I here will teach you how to use your abilities correctly and how different they are from what humans nowadays call chakra. During this I will be teaching you of what I learned at your age. That includes every style I've learned and seen, and the ways to control your energy, or ki as it was called by the users of this energy. First off will be what Master Roshi taught me, and that is called the Turtle Hermit way of training in martial arts." Naruto's ears perked up as the word martial arts, and Goku saw his reaction and smiled. "Martial arts is a way of fighting in close combat, or as the shinobi call it, taijutsu, but martial arts is more of a basic way of fighting than what the shinobi do. Now first off, before we do this, Shenron here is gonna have to fully awaken your Saiyan blood, since only half of it has been awoken, and let me tell you, it's gonna hurt a lot, he warned the young scion. I don't care as long as I can get stronger to fight stronger opponents and protect those important to me. I'll go through anything done to me, Naruto said with his eyes filled with the same determination Goku had when he is a child. Smiling at his longtime descendant, he pat his shoulder. Good, because I have a feeling trouble is gonna blow its way toward you and you have to be ready for it now. Shenron, do it, he said while Naruto nodded with him, showing he was ready. Seeing the Shenron's eyes glowed red, and before Naruto knew it he was on the ground as blue lightning covered his body as a blue aura came off him in waves. Seeing this, Goku was a bit surprised. While he's got more key fighting power or latent energy than I did at his age, and even then I didn't find out about it till later on, but it would seem he was already unintentionally trying to control his power for a while now. Incredible. But Goku's face then started to sport a large grin. He'll be the perfect apprentice. Though Goku was cut short of his musings and his eyes widened when he saw Naruto's form start to glow a gold color. Before he and Shenron knew it, they had to close their eyes from the sudden light erupting within the mindscape, but that didn't stop the sudden skyrocket of Naruto's power rising in the elemental countries, alerting many, and even the ground itself was trembling from the raw power he was emitting. In Konoha, the two crying Uzumakis suddenly, along with the tired yet furious Sand Dame, felt the strange yet foreign energy along with the tremble that shook the very foundations of Konoha itself. But Kushina and Mito felt the power and knew immediately that is felt closely related to Naruto, but it was much stronger yet far more primal. Naru Nikon, I sense him. Kachan, I sense him, he's out there somewhere. Naru Nikon is out there, Mito said happily while Kushina was sporting a full-blown megawatt grin on her face. Her son was alive and was out there somewhere, but the energy she felt, it was definitely that of what Naruto's felt like, but it was much more potent and primal, and it honestly sent chills down her spine. For some reason she wondered when she would see Naruto again, as did the cheerful Mito. With Goku and Shenron, the two stood in shock at what they were seeing before them was a change to Naruto. They honestly didn't know how much Naruto would change when he had his other half of his Saiyan blood awakened, but now seeing the results they couldn't but agree it was a good thing, for in front of them stood Naruto, who stood from his normal height of 3 feet 6 inches to a 4-0. His hair was just like Goku's in every way except for it being spikier. His face was the same, but his eyes held a primal urge to fight a good fight and find strong opponents. His muscles were now much more seen since his sudden growth spurt changed his body slightly. His latest attire from the shinobi all black he wore was all but in torn rags from the sudden transformation, and Naruto's monkey tail waved wildly behind him. Goku was more focused on Naruto's energy signature, and it was off the charts. Even in his age he was nowhere near this kind of level, yet the feeling Naruto's aura gave off was a very primal, a feeling only science would have, since he gained the same feeling as he did when he encountered Vegeta. But his rival had the feeling in spades, since it was the same pride and thirst for battle. He would need to change that in Naruto, as he didn't want to deal with a second Vegeta. Oh, the chaos that would happen if it did. Looking into his new apprentice's eyes, he smiled, patting him on the shoulder. Well, I guess we have a lot of work to do, huh? He asked, getting a small grin from Naruto. That we do, Goku-sensei, that we do. But that's when Naruto's eyes widened comically, making Goku wonder what was wrong, until he realized that he was fearful of his mother and sister, who have been known to have short tempers and violent streaks. Oh, Kushina-chan and Mito-chan are gonna kill me when I don't come back. Okami, the horror, he said in a fearful tone, which Goku suddenly sympathized with him, as he still felt the phantom pains of Shixi's frying pan attacks. Ouch, I feel your pain, Naruto, as my wife was the same, but don't fret, we can send a telepathical link to them of what you're doing. Then we must really get started on your training. Nodding in acceptance, he followed Goku's instructions and placed his hand on Goku's head while the old scion reached out with his senses until he found the two still in the Sarutobi clan home. Alerting Naruto of this, and the newly reborn scion began to speak within mentally. Hello, is this thing on? Hello. Kushina and Mito's ears perked up at the sound they were hearing and looked around only to see no one. Kushina, Kachan, Mito-chan, can you both hear me? Knowing the voice, the two redheads' eyes bugged out and jumped up in fright as they heard Naruto's voice. Looking around frantically, ghost Naruto, nes Sochi-kun's spirit is talking to. As they both shouted, trying to not hear the voice, Naruto and Goku both gained huge sweat drops on the back of their heads and chuckled before Naruto spoke once more. Kushina, Kachan, Mito-chan, it's me, Naruto. Their eyes widened even further and looked up only to see no one. Getting frustrated, they both yelled, if you really are Naruto, nes Sochi-kun there, where the hell are you? They both yelled in unison. Naruto suddenly gulped nervously while Goku saying a silent prayer to his descendant for a good future and to help him avoid the wrath of two female redheads. Well, I'm not totally sure myself, but I want to tell you two something. This latest attack on my person has opened my eyes. Not only am I not safe in Konoha at the moment, I'm also risking both of your safety with the shinobi and civilian alike trying to kill me. They wanted to protest, but then he spoke up once again. Oh, I know what you're thinking, Mito-chan, and stop right now. I know they think I'm some monster and I'm fine with that. Let them think what they want to, they'll just regret it later on. Besides, I don't like to see you cry or you either. Kushina, Kachan, too bad. Naruto didn't see the blushes upon both the females' faces as he said his words, but Goku did, and since he's lived for so long he finally understands a little bit more of the females and had to grin. Naruto had a way with words with women. Kushina and Mito just sat there rethinking what Naruto just said and kept playing it over and over in their minds as heat rushed to both of their faces. Why does Sochi-kun's voice sound deeper? And the way he said those things, and when did I starting calling him Sochi-kun? What happened to just plain Sochi? A flustered Kushina was wondering as her hands were on her face trying to hide her growing blush. He's mine, son, for Kami's sake, and I shouldn't be thinking about such things about the one you brought into this world. Mito on the other hand was more open. Her Yunai-san was acting much differently than before, but the way he spoke made that strange feeling in her grow much more, and suddenly found a strange heat coming upon her face. That's when she heard Kyubi speak. Damn, Narukun sure knows how to speak with a lady. Has got you. And Kushina-chan blushing. Hell, even myself. Kyubi muttered the last part to herself. Only Ku-chan, when did you start calling Nissan Naru-kun? The redhead asked mentally with a cute yet confused expression on her face, but Kyubi just blushed, trying to hide her embarrassment. I'll tell you later, Kyubi said quickly before cutting off mental connection, leaving behind a confused Mito. That's when they both realized his final words and their eyes grew as wide as dinner plates. Sochi-kun, don't tell me you're fearing the worst. Naruto not coming back to protect Natsumi and herself from Konoha's villagers. Hearing this, Naruto sighed but spoke honestly. Yes, that was my first option of not returning, but I've been persuaded to do something different. I'm gonna travel the elemental countries and try to hone my skills and get stronger. That way when I come back I'll be able to protect not only myself but my family as well. Until then we won't hear from each other for a long time, he answered solemnly. Hearing this, the 2-3 counting Kyubi felt their hearts wrench and asking the question on their minds. Kushina asked, how long will you be gone? She asked. Reading the answer there was a long pause, making them feel uneasy. Well, it would be around the time Mitochan graduates from the academy to when our generation of tuning exams begin. I'm not totally sure, but don't worry, I'll be fine. I just want you two to be safe and meet Akin to train as well to get stronger before we meet again. And Yukashina-kachan, I want you to start training once more. I'd like to fight the woman that made Iwakumo and Carrie piss themselves in fear whenever you draw your sword, he said nervously, getting shot looks from the two while Kyubi was surprised as well. You'll be gone for years, Sochi-kun, but if that is truly your decision, she said sadly. It is, Kushina-kachan. I realize I'm not normal like the others. The monkey tail proves this, so I'd like to fully understand just what I am. But could you tell Tsurujiji Makoto-san, Sum-san, Sukina-chan, Fem-sak, Hitomi-chan, Fem-itachi, Hana-chan, Inuni-san and the others that I will be back, so let them not worry of where I am and let them continue on with their lives. Can you do this for me? Wiping the tears from her face, she smiled. Of course, so Shikan, just hurry up with your training and come back to us, she said, getting a chuckle from him. Hey, you got it, Kushina-kachan. Naruto Nikon, said the silent voice of Mito, which Naruto noted was too silent from Mito. Worried, he answered her, yes, Mitochan, is something wrong? Biting her lower lip, she started to shake before speaking. Please come back home quickly. I understand you need to train like I do, but I'll miss you. Ka-chan will miss you, she said as tears started to form in her blue eyes. Naruto flinched at her words but steeled his resolve. I know this and I'll come back as quick as I can, I promise. I mean, I still owe you that day out, don't one, he said amusingly, getting a giggle from her as well as Kushina. The day outs, as they are called, was practically Mito dragging Naruto everywhere with her, despite whatever it may be. She called it bonding with Anie-san, but he mentally calls it torture. A few seconds of comfortable silence reigned in before Naruto spoke once more. I gotta go, guys, not sure if I have Gigi Zambu on my tail or what, but I gotta get going. Okay, bye. Snapping their heads to his voice, they spoke in unison, not knowing how long it would be before they saw Naruto again. Goodbye, Naruto-kun, be safe, they said in unison. With mental connection went out and Goku was smiling at the grinning Naruto. You have a wonderful family. Naruto reminds me of my own a bit, he though I suspect you are gonna get something very surprising when you meet them again. I just know it, Goku said with grin of his own. Naruto, shaking his head at his master, stood at attention and spoke. When should we begin? Goku-sensei, Shenron-sensei, he asked. The two beings blinked and looked at each and blinked twice before grinning. Turning his head back to Naruto, he spoke. We will begin by first getting you some new clothes, and seeing as you have no money you're gonna be doing some odd jobs that includes farming, construction and delivering milk while using an old training method Master Roshi used on me and my best friend Krillin, Goku said, remembering the times he did the training. That's when a giant green turtle shell with two straps on appeared in his hand and started handing it to Naruto, expecting it to weigh a bit. Naruto grabbed hold of the shell, only a second later hitting the ground with a loud thud. Kami, how much does this thing weigh? Naruto muttered and never saw the dark gleam in Goku's eyes. That Naruto will be your personal training. Wait until I'm satisfied with the results. Now get out of here and get to training, he said, personally kicking Naruto out of his own mindscape. When he was gone, he heard Shenron Chuck raising an eyebrow in curiosity. He asked Shenron, "What's so funny?" he asked the old dragon, and saw the smirk of the dragon. "Ha ha ha, nothing, just that turtle shell weighs 10x more than what you had to begin with at your start of training." Blinking, Goku chuckled, seeing where this was heading. To Ohio about that? Well, I just have a feeling that was the beginning of where he would need to start at, he asked, getting a deadpan look from the dragon. "You call 20 tons a beginning?" he asked in a monotone-like voice, which Goku just nodded at, shaking his head. The dragon laid its head down, thinking about his and Goku's new student and how his training should be planned out for the next few years.